Hey everybody, welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brendan, and together we make movies with DBS Films. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and hop into part 2 of a scene-by-scene breakdown of our first found footage movie and our fifth movie, Into the Forest. If you haven't seen the first episode, be sure to go ahead and check that out, as we essentially go through the entire movie saying what we do like, what we do not like in the sense of how we would improve. So with that being said, we kind of mentioned the big pitfalls of Into the Forest are highlighting that we're kind of really missing out on a lot of the downbeats in the sense of where we're actually using the plot. Overall though, the setup is pretty good. So before we hop into the second half, do you want to give kind of a little bit of a recap of your thoughts on Into the Forest? What was good, what was bad?
Yeah, I thought we actually started to really write a really good screenplay. I thought this is actually a really good screenplay. I think it just fell into a couple pitfalls that caused us a lot of issues with this movie, which was pretty much the intro wasn't as punchy as it could have been. It doesn't really tell you anything about the movie, and it just doesn't really build suspense, or it doesn't like raise the stakes of the movie, because really in the intro you want to make it clear that someone's life was taken. So when you cut to these characters and you have them go into the woods, you already know the stakes are high, that their life could be at risk, and we never really do that. And then we have a lot of lore dumping stuff that just doesn't really make a lot of sense, and we have some dialogue scenes that don't really add to the movie and actually kind of detract from the movie because they're confusing the viewer. So we make a lot of common indie mistakes, but the good news is that we uploaded this. We got it uploaded and we got a lot of feedback on it. The feedback was, I don't understand what's going on. And so now when we're going to make the Into the Forest 2.0 movie, which we're going to shoot next month, I was able to compile all that footage. I was able to make my own notes. So when we wrote this screenplay, we focused on the stuff that was really good, which is the paranormal documentary crew. It's the Nelson character, it's the witch, and it's just the spookiness of the woods. And like, we really beat that down and made those things like as minimalistic as possible. The screenplay is much, much cleaner, much, much leaner. And I think it's just going to start and it's going to go all the way through the end. So I think we're avoiding a lot of the pitfalls. We're taking the lessons that we learned from this movie and we're going to make a better movie.
Yep, completely agree. So with that, we'll hop into the second part. And, I think this is something where, again, looking at the next, screenplay that we have going into the next movie, again, it moves really, really fast. And at this point in time, we're deep in the thick of the woods in the sense of where you're going to be. And, we mentioned, hey, get them in the woods as soon as possible because that's where it's spooky. So picking up, we get them basically saying, hey, you know what? We have heard kids laughing. This is going to be great. We're going to go ahead. We'll go into the woods tomorrow. They go to sleep and we get the same essentially pop scare that we did the first time, except this time he goes out and instead of Chase, it is Kim out there, and she has a bloody nose. And again, so very basic pop scare, nothing really dangerous. And then the second part of it, it adds to that plot of her being psychic, which we never really touch upon enough, and clearly say she is psychic. She is getting nosebleeds from being psychic. She can feel them. It's all this little vague stuff. And while it might feel like it's, pronounced when you're doing the when you're doing the process of writing the screenplay, when you actually watch it, when it actually comes across, literally you don't even pick it up. It doesn't even register, in my opinion, because a lot of times people don't even mention that she's a psychic.
Yeah, and this is a cool plot point. I really like this. I like the fact that she does have some kind of connection to the paranormal. But like, look what we've done so far. The only time that she's had nosebleed and a seizure was in the car, and they just literally said, oh, she forgot her medicine. So it's some kind of medical condition. There's nothing, we mentioned nothing about being paranormal there. Then the only other time we bring up that she's a psychic was Nelson saying, oh, hey, you're that psychic. Yeah, amazing dialogue, to really build that character. Then we have like a little scene outside with Bo and Kim saying, or Bo and Amy saying, back when we were kids, like we fell down this well. Do you remember what we saw down there? We never say what they saw. we just say that like people don't believe them, which doesn't like what are they don't believe? Did they see like a monster down there? Did they see a ghost? None of this, like we're just kind of glossing over a lot of this stuff when really you got to be like, hey, if you're gonna do this scene, you gotta be like, hey, you know, remember when we saw that paranormal stuff, exactly what it was, and do you think there's something like that out here in the woods? That would have been totally fine. We could have brought that up. So we never really bring that up. So now you're thrown into this pop scare situation where she's like, "Oh, I can feel the witch. She's out here. I can feel her." But it doesn't really make any sense because we've kind of glossed over it up into this movie. The pop scare is not very good. And so you have like a really cool scene where she's out there in the woods. You can hear her calling to Jimmy, but he just doesn't, it's not there. Like the audience doesn't know what's going on. The pop scare is not very good. So, I mean, up until I said with the Nelson gun scene, I thought the screenplay is really good. I think we really fall off the cliff here. And I just don't think we were able to capture that pacing, capture the momentum, and capture that clarity on a story level to really get this movie to where it needed to be.
Yep. And then what ends up happening from there is we slow down even more. So you kind of miss out on that. They wake up, they get their stuff, they go camping. They're kind of just going through there. There's talk about, being famous with the A&E deal, which still hasn't been finalized because it's not actually real yet. So we do build that point, and I think that's actually a really good tension point. But again, with the plot being so scattered, it's not 100% necessary. So, it ends up slowing down even more from here on because you have the scene with them basically going hiking in the day, which you mentioned day is not scary. So you're basically just going to be able to use that for lore dump. The lore dump that we end up using is about the A&E deal, which again is something that does build tension in this one. I think it's unnecessary because, I think regardless, this will be going out there because A&E deal or not, capturing something like this will be huge. So I think that scene again of them walking, setting up, talking and whatnot, and then doing the montage of getting set up, that's basically about 4 minutes of not much. And I think another thing is, the montage that we did do with a kind of static cam and then like opening up there, I think I'm curious to see like how you might approach this or what we'll look at doing for the next one. But I think to me, it would be a series of quick cuts, almost kind of being like the montage of like them over here, over there, setting something up. Maybe one of the cuts is a little bit spookier. Like, what the heck is this? Like, I think you could kind of look at that, but we basically have it just roll right on through. They sit down, they talk in the campsite for a bit, and then they have a static montage of them setting up the campground.
Yeah, I mean, to reference the A&E deal, I remember when we were writing this, we needed something so that they couldn't just leave the woods, that they want to stay there. And that's what the A&E contract does. It hasn't been finalized and they want to, they have to go out there and capture this stuff. But really, like, once again, this is just kind of muddying the waters. It's adding unnecessary plot where if you just make the main characters more motivated, more driven, this is what their whole career is like, trying to capture this paranormal stuff. That's having actual footage, even if it means risking their lives a little bit, is a good enough motivation to keep them there. And we did this in the murder house, and it worked very well. So I think that this is just kind of a screenwriting pitfall where you're just kind of overthinking things. I think if you just make sure that these characters are really amped up, they're really excited, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, I think that's as much motivation as you really need. And if the audience doesn't believe it, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I think that if you have characters that are kind of stubborn, like this is their downfall, they are willing to risk fame and fortune, or trade in fame and fortune and riches, for just a little bit of risking their life. That's a character flaw that's going to end up killing them. And that's totally fine. Like, your characters have to be the ones that are making decisions that push your movie forward, whether they're good decisions or bad decisions. So I think the A&E contract, well, it adds like a little bit of spice. You can get that character argument at the end. I don't think it just doesn't really, it detracts you from what we're trying to do. I think kind of makes you hate the characters a little bit. So I think that there's just an easier way to do that, which was just give the characters more motivation to actually go out there and capture this.
Yeah, I think you're completely right in the sense of, it's a downbeat that doesn't need to be there. It does add tension 100%, but if you just have them motivated, like we saw in the murder house, you don't need that. And then thus you can save another plot point for instead what happens if they're talking about Nelson and the witch again, perfect time for them to discuss more about this. What do you think's going on? What's going to happen? You can easily continue to focus that on what the actual plot should be. So that being said, we have them set up. And then once again, man, Jimmy just keeps waking up. Oh, wait, oh man. So this was the classic horror trope of like something completely obvious. This is when we find out that she forgot her medicine, which, I mean, if it's life-saving medicine, that's pretty much a big grab out there. And I think, again, it kind of goes back to us needing to add tension, needing to add reason. And also, there was kind of the idea that her medicine prevented her psychic abilities. Like, I remember that kind of being like an idea or a concept where it's like, well, she's not on her medicine, she's going to be more sensitive to paranormal. But basically we have the night scene of them talking, and this again I think is just a perfect example of how scattered the plot is. And what I think the biggest issue is you go from them talking about the A&E deal, which isn't necessarily necessary, and then at night talking about her seizures and her paranormal and the pills, which isn't necessarily necessary either in my opinion. So I think you just kind of go left, go right, and you're not talking about the witch in the woods.
Yeah, but I mean, the main thing is there's no tension, there's no stakes as far as like the woods actually being super dangerous. That's like the biggest thing. Your viewer wants to be put in a situation. They care more about the situation. They care more about the monster and the actual lore of the movie than they do really about the characters. So you really have to be, 100% clear that what's about to happen is super dangerous. The stakes are their lives, and you got to tell the audience what's exactly going to happen. You see it in all the really good horror movies. It's like, don't go in that house. Something bad is going to happen. And right now, if you're the viewer to this movie, well, is she going to die because her pills? Are they going to die, or are they going to like lose their job because it's an A&E contract? All this stuff is taken away from what we should have been building on is, all right, there's a witch in these woods and their life is in danger. And the pill thing, looking back on it, I guess it raises the stakes because she can just have a seizure and die. But that's not the witch killing her. That's, her forgetting her pills killing her. And now I'm already like, well, man, if I needed life-saving medicine, I'd double check all my stuff, right? Like, especially if I'm going out to these woods, which they're going out there camping for a few days, doesn't really make any sense. And then the characters are like, oh, don't worry about it, you're fine. And it's like, whoa, like, I think she even says like, thanks for looking out for my well-being. And that was like her brother, like saying, she'll be all right. So there's weird character dynamics going on. We're not really building the situation, the tension situation. And we're just adding all this stuff that just, you can cut all this stuff. And like, this is the rule that I follow right now is if I write something and I kind of get like that pit in my stomach, like, do I really need this or do I not need this? I'll just cut it. And if the story moves forward without it, fine, then you don't need it. And like, you can cut the A&E contract, you can cut the pills, and this movie would have been the same movie. And I think you just find different things to actually build up, which is the lore, the witch, Nelson. And that's the juice. That's the meat of this movie. Instead, we're focusing on just other stuff that just doesn't need to be focused on.
Yeah, it really is the case. And again, we mentioned that this movie and The Haunting the Suicide House really made it clear to us in the sense that this is a big issue that comes up, and this is something that we need to address with the plots there. So you have that, and then you have surprise, surprise. You'll never guess how the pop scare starts. It's Jimmy at night, and there's noises outside. So they go outside, they kind of run around, and then you have kind of a pop scare of the other guy to be like, hey, I'm in the tent. And then it's basically just hearing the children's laughter and then catching it, on the footage of basically like hearing the laughter and hearing the stuff out there. but it's very still mild and non-threatening. I think one of the biggest things, and we'll kind of mention it a little bit without giving it away, but we have a very actionable event happening in the new Into the Forest. It's basically like something is going to take place and something will become of an outcome here, where they're kind of just out here waiting around. They go out there, again, you get not really that active of a scare. It's the same scare that we've used 2 times in a row. And then you hear laughing and voices all around you. So I think overall, it does its job in the sense of a basic version of it, but it really just highlights how, to me, it's almost a blueprint, like scary scene should be here. And we just kind of colored in the lines not too correctly.
Yeah, I mean the pop scares in this movie are really bad. I don't think there's even like a pop scare in this one. I think they just wake up, they hear noises, and they go in the woods, and then they're excited because they hear stuff in the woods. Well, they need to like see something. There needs to be some kind of pop scare here. There never was. There needs like this needs to be setting the stakes. They need to feel like they're in danger. And then once again, man, really guys, try and avoid doing audio scares or just audio stuff in general. I made this mistake in Shapeshifter and it'll be fine because like I'm much better at it now, but it's like these audio scares, having voices out there, and number one, they're not very impactful. And number two, it's just like you're asking for just a nightmare in post-production to get this stuff to sound like cool. So I think that, having voices in the wood is fine, but don't rely on it. And it seems easy because you're like, oh, that sounds like cool. If I hear other people's voices in the woods, it's just going to be a mess in post-production. So I'd say avoid that. But like, this needs to be like your pop scares have to elevate and your beats have to elevate and slowly build on each other. And this is probably the weakest one because not only do they just hear some stuff, they're like, oh, yeah, now we're happy. We got it all recorded. So there really was no scare there and there's no tension. And now we just cut back to them, waking up.
Yep. And I mean, again, you have such limited hits and misses when it comes to any kind of movie. And if it's not something engaging here, and it's like I was saying, it's so close. So they wake up, we got a bunch of rocks stacked up outside, very original in that sense. And surprise, surprise, they take a look at the footage and you'll never guess what happened to the footage. It's corrupted. So they're basically there. Now, again, we mentioned that if we would execute in the way we're executing in the new movie, is essentially by focusing in on basically their drive to find out what's going on. Because what comes up here is, all right, well, we got to go in because we don't have her pills and we lost the footage. And then Jimmy's like, but we don't have the A&E deal. So then obviously everyone's pissed off at Jimmy because, I mean, hey, not cool about the A&E deal. You have the tension there. You have the pills and everything. You have them basically stopping. He gets to the night. She's having another seizure reaction to it, which is not ideal for her. So basically you have another day scene. You do have the tension here of it picking up for the next day and kind of there. But again, like in the 2.0 version, this wouldn't even be necessary. At this point in time, we're so deep in the action events of what's happening that it is full steam ahead. This is almost like a pit stop that does not need to exist. So do you kind of want to talk about how I think the big difference is we're just going to have pure action at this point in time. At this point in time, the stakes are increasing and you're at the height of the point. Something is going to come out here. And compared to just another random, all right, next day, wake up, talk for a little bit, and then go to night.
Yeah, I mean, like this scene needs to thrust you into the climax. So this scene is an important scene, but it needs to clearly state the plot and the decision that the crew has to make whether to stay or go. We don't really do that. And we have to make it clear that if they're going to stay, the stakes of that decision, saying like there is danger in there, and their life could be in danger. And if they decide to leave, they have to make it clear what they're giving up. And this is just a mess of a scene because it's them arguing, them making a mistake, which was Bo's mistake as far as like, or Jimmy's mistake as far as, not having the A&E contract. The footage is deleted and they're just yelling at each other. There's no building like the lore. There's no building the stakes of the situation. there's no like building the tension, and they're just all coming across as like, all right, this guy actually deleted the footage. This guy doesn't have an A&E deal, and this girl doesn't have her pills. It's like, all right, come on, guys. And they're all just yelling at each other. And I thought the scene was really well acted. They did a great job doing this. It's just not a very good scene. Take this and contrast it to what we did in the murder house. Something happened, and they come out there, and Harper is literally saying, listen, we can get a little bit more. We got to stay. And the other character's like, no, we got to go. And it's just a much more dynamic conversation. It's clearly stating the intention and the goals of the characters. And it just thrusts you into the climax because you know exactly what's going on. Like if you take that scene from the murder house and put it here, it would have been a much better movie. Then you're heading to the climax. You know exactly what's going on. You know there's danger. You know where they stand. And the characters are actively making this decision that's going to set up their fate. They're not being passive. Forgetting the pills is passive. Deleting the footage is passive. Not having an A&E deal is passive. And, you know, you want characters who are active. If they're going to make a decision that's going to kill themselves, the characters have to kind of do that. Like you have to make your final, you know, step into the climax and just, you know, essentially make the decision for your life yourself. And they've been warned multiple times. I don't know if we really warned them too well in this movie, but in a screenplay, a normal horror trope screenplay, there's going to be multiple times that the characters are warned, and then they're the ones who actually make that fateful decision to keep going because they're greedy, or they have some kind of, you know, they're chasing fame and fortune, which is just a character downfall in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, you know, essentially highlight the major flaws with it and kind of the differences to the new one. So with that being said, we have our another night scene after Amy is having issues. She's basically like, all right, you have to go back, Bo. You have to go to the cabin. And again, this is where that whole lore of don't be alone, you know, should have been like spooky, you know, like should have been like, now we wouldn't beat around the bush with this. We'd just say, you have to go alone, but watch out because you're alone. The witch can now get you. Like we would literally state that if that was a plot point. You clearly define the terms of what's about to happen. So that wasn't happen. He runs out there. You run into the cabin. We get the little ghost girl scare. So real quick, kind of want to just talk about how, you know, because this should have been a majorly tense moment. You should have, as an audience, felt incredibly tense the second he walked away from that group. But because we never talk about that or anything in detail, really, besides like maybe the park ranger again brought it up a little bit, and then we brought up in the lore dump. I don't think we brought it up there. You know, like we would have basically done something different if this was the plot point that we chose. We would have had something where the entire group is like, make sure you don't wander off alone, make sure you don't wander off alone. Like he would repeat it, and we never did. So he just kind of runs, goes to the cabin, and then he runs into the ghost girl. I thought the ghost girl was actually pretty good. I mean, like you can kind of tell it's like really gnarly, like filters over it and whatnot to get the effect done, but like it's found footage, so I mean, hey, you get to get away with that stuff.
Oh, Ghost Girl was great. I think that was probably our best pop scare. I think that was the only one that really had like tension, because you don't really expect it. And honestly, to make this movie a lot better is if you took this scare and just moved it the night before, because they could easily see this. They could capture footage of what is a ghost, and maybe you don't know it's a ghost. Maybe it's like it could be Casey Morgan, the Nelson's daughter. And I think you can do that. And then the whole conversation of, hey, we got this on film. They can be going through their laptop, looking at it, being like, is this a ghost? Is this a real child? Like something is out here, right? So they know they have it. They captured it. The footage isn't deleted. They're excited that they have captured it, but they want more. They want the witch herself. And that's their final downfall. So now you're taking a scare, which the one before that was super flat, them just hearing voices, to an actual pop scare with the kid. And then you have the conversation that starts into the climax. It's just moving certain scenes around can make a movie so much better. But you don't know that until you essentially upload it.
I mean, and that's the big thing. You got to get to that upload and you understand there. But you know, again, I think you have that moment. That's good. He pulls away from that. And then, you know, I think really these next two combos of seeing the ghost girl and then running up and and seeing them get dragged really helps out. Like the drag scene, I thought I really like the drag scene. I think it looks out cool. Realistically, if you look at the drag scene, it makes negative sense because there's no camera. So how is it his POV if he's being dragged? But it's really one of those things where like you can just cut to it, if he's holding it or whatnot, you can assume that he has it. But he's running with his hands open. And then he hits it. It's from his POV being dragged away. So you kind of just cut to it. But again, I think that looked really cool. And I mean, like this is the chaos. Like this is the type of scenes that should have been in the middle of the movie. This type of action, panic, fear, not really the passive turnaround or your feeling. So do you have any thoughts on the drag scene or just kind of how it shows? I mean, these past two scenes are spooky and active in the woods. And if you're in the woods at night and you're doing active stuff like that, you're going to have good pacing.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to have a camera. I think the take that we had to use, and this comes back to like the downfall of found footage. Like if you don't get your stuff and you don't have like all the footage you need, I think he just put the camera down for a couple takes, and those are the takes that we had. But he's supposed to have a camera. I definitely remember him supposed to have a camera. But this scene was kind of crazy because we never did it in pre-production, so we didn't really know what we're doing. We had a tropical storm that was just dumping a ton of rain on us, so we were like doing these shots, running back to the cabin, waiting for these swells to pass, and then running back out there. And I remember this scene, because we didn't know what we were doing. We were saving the climax to last, like amateur filmmakers. It just didn't come off as well as it should have been. Honestly, I would have had this dude get taken earlier. I think you could have the ghost girl and then him get taken, and then you're just leaving Bo and Amy for the last night. I think would have been really cool, because then you can't leave that guy out there. They just don't know where he is. And then their conversation is like, oh, hey, do we go back to, get the cops, or do we stay out here and try and find this guy? That's a great concept. And once again, just moving pieces around. But I actually like this climax. I think it kind of builds well. There's some scary stuff in there. I think honestly, it can be longer. I think you can add another 5 minutes on this one and really get a nice climax in the movie. But it's not bad. Honestly, it's probably one of our better climaxes.
Yeah, no, I think, you pick up the action there, and that's kind of like the last 10 minutes of it. You go there. I think, the unfortunate part of the climax is, the way that we did it. And I'm a huge fan of shapeshifters for one of the major reasons being you don't need any kind of monster. You can just be a person. So I think that was one of the main reasons why we had them doing shapeshifting, because like I remember really the core concept, at least when I was fleshing out the ideas for it, was coming from this climax of you go to find basically a body, and when you turn around, it's the body of the person you're with. Thus, the person you're with is the shapeshifter. So, I mean, I feel like we kind of co-opted the witch and the plot and all that stuff. So again, you don't understand it. So it makes not a lot of sense at all. But that being said, yeah, I think it's good. And no spoilers, but it is something that we revisited in one of our newest movies, just because I think the core concept's good. The problem is the setup is absolutely terrible for it to make any sense.
Yeah, this is where we lost people, because we never bring up that the witch has shape-shifting abilities, which we could have easily done in the interviews, or Nelson could have said something. We bring it up once with the park ranger, but it's like said through an impact line. It's not really built up. Then I think they needed to see one of their team members. Like you could easily have like Bo out in the woods, and Amy has the camera and she's like, oh, hey, Bo, like, what are you doing out there? And he kind of just goes deeper into the woods. She's like, what the heck? And then turns around and Bo's standing right there. Easy pop scare, easy to do. And now you're like, hey, like, does this witch have the ability to shapeshift? And if you build that up, then you can hit that end. And I think like, if you're going to make a movie, and a lot of our screenplays are built from the end, and we go from, we have a really good climax and a really good ending to these movies, and then we kind of work backwards. And if you're going to do that, man, you got to really make sure you're building for that ending. You can't be just muddling and kind of forgetting about it, because that is the true cool nature of this movie, was that actual shapeshifter thing, but we never brought it up. So, and if you're the viewer, you're watching this movie, you're getting all this plot and all these like little lore things dumped on you. So we're not making anything very clear. And then you get this crazy ending, which is cool in retrospect, but it doesn't really make any sense, and you're not prepared for it. I think this is where the confusion really lies in this movie.
Yeah, I think that, again, the reason why I think we get a lot of feedback is you go through this whole process. And if you get to that point and that happens, you're just like, what the heck just happened? Like, what was the actual plot? Because I think we could have saved it a lot if we had, like we were saying, one thing that we picked. But with that being said, I think overall it's a solid movie. It was uploaded very quickly. It was a big critical part of DBS. So with that being said, I think the biggest difference that I'm seeing kind of what we're looking for the next one versus this one is we have a very clear outcome of basically, hey, here's in the middle of the story, they're basically making a yes or no if they're going to go out into the woods and essentially see what they can find with Nelson. And I think we have a very clear escalation. And then we have a very clear breakdown of when that happens and then the climax. So do you want to kind of talk about how, again, we are doing it different from the midpoint on? A little bit broad strokes, just so we don't reveal too much. But I think the biggest difference to me is we're focusing all the plot inward, specifically on the Nelson character, but we have a very clear next steps for everyone. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Whereas this one, they get out into the woods and there really is no clear mission. Let's just go out there and film. Where I think now we have it where it's laid out very, very straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, like looking back on it, when we were writing the screenplay, like none of this stuff really made sense to us because you're writing this screenplay, you're spending so much time in this screenplay, you understand the backstories of all these characters because you created these characters. Of course, you know the ending and like all this little lore and the backstories of all the characters, their motivations, because that's the job of writing a screenplay. And this is why like you really need to finish a project and upload it, and you have to try and get as much feedback as possible. This is why working with a distribution company to get your film on all these platforms so you can get hundreds of IMDb reviews, hundreds of Amazon reviews is so powerful because it's going to make you such a better filmmaker. Where I think a lot of indie filmmakers right now, they'll write a screenplay. They'll make a movie. It'll take 3 years to be finished. It'll be a broken movie. And then they just kind of shelf it and you're just losing that feedback. And feedback is such a valuable tool. The only way to get better is through feedback. And I'm taking all the feedback from this movie, which was these people were confused. They didn't understand the plot and like the climax in the middle part of the movie fell off. We're consolidating the plot in the new one. We're making it super clear what's going on, and we're changing the whole second half of the movie so that the viewer knows exactly what's happening every step of the way. And the suspense builds all the way through, the climax. Are we going to execute on that? I don't know, but that's like the fun of filmmaking. You don't know. I think the screenplay is much better. It's much stronger. And it's up to us to execute it, but I don't see any pitfalls in this screenplay. I think just how we execute it, how I'm going to direct the movie is going to be, am I going to fall into a pitfall? I don't know. And if we do, I don't really care. Okay. Like I'm going to get feedback from the 2.0 version, and then we're going to make a 3.0 version. 3.0 version is going to be much better than 2.0 version. It's just how we operate. It's how these things are done. This is how you make movies.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, that's what I'm really the most excited for is it's not necessarily that the idea is better, the idea is different. It's the execution. It's the focus on the plot. It's what were the issues for the last movie? What did we learn just filming style wise? So we're definitely very excited for that. We're actually wrapping up the casting process right now. So very, very excited. And, I think the biggest thing is going to be being able to take a look at this movie, watching it, seeing how it turns out. I'm looking forward to it because as soon as we have the newest one, it's going to just set us up for, hey, Into the Forest 3.0. I think it really is something where you can continue to learn, you can continue to progress. And overall, I think it's just a very good milestone. So do you have any last comments on Into the Forest? I mean, I just what I mentioned there, I'm kind of curious. Do you see an Into the Forest 3.0? Because I feel like this is a concept that has a lot of legs.
I mean, depending on how, like, we're getting to the point now where I think the 3.0 versions of the movie can actually just be different concepts. Um, when I write a script, usually as I'm fleshing it out, it can go in 7 or 8 different ways. And I know we had like a script similar to like a Making a Murder, how that all played out. Like that documentary could have easily been pulled into this one. I know we had like a one where it's more like the ritual and he actually gets the witch to come back. So there's like a lot of different variations you could do with this script. And I think if we can pull it off and make a good movie out of the 2.0 version, which I think we can, instead of doing a 3.0 version, we kind of split off and try different variations of that 2.0 version, which I think is what's going to happen with the Murder House. Is I thought we did a good enough movie. We told that story. Now we're just kind of messing around with like different variations and put different characters and different plot points in there just to see what people like better. But I mean, there's a ton of ways you can go with this movie. So I'm excited. You know, it's a fun thing to do. I think we're starting to get to the point where we can have a solid concept and we get executed on it properly and we can tell that story and we get feedback on that story. And then if people are like, I don't like this movie, then that's a screenplay issue. And that's where you, as a filmmaker, I really want to have the issues with the screenplay because the screenplay is the easiest thing to fix. And easy to go back there and fix it. You know, it's much more difficult if you're an independent filmmaker and you're like, you know, you're having issues with lighting, you're having issues with sound, you're having issues with picture, you're having issues with your actors. That stuff is just, you got to gain through experience. But if people are like, hey, I like that story, but you know, here's my feedback. These are things you need to fix. Well, that's easy because I could just crank out a new screenplay and be ready to go.
Yep, no, completely agree. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. We're going to hop into our second found footage episode, which is The Haunting of the Suicide House next week. And again, be sure to take a look, follow our Discord for more updates on all of our movies, on the projects. If you ever want to be in the movie, that's the place to be. Be sure to check out The Haunting of the Murder House Into the Forest on Tubi right now, as well as The German Cabin 13. We really appreciate all the support and feedback. And until then, have a good one.